Hey guys, another great lesson that I want to chat about today that I've kind of taught myself and really still haven't learned yet, but have been realizing it throughout the years. And it really came true today. And I want to speak about it is that, um, plain and simple, it's pretty heavy, but all we have to fear really is death and fear itself, which really is, the loss of life, right? I think those two tie together. And let me kind of take a step back and how those come relate to each other. How do we fear death, and how do we only fear fear itself, and why those are two separate things, and what they really stem from, and what do I mean by that? And you have to look at the layers of what you're actually afraid of, right? So ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Why am I afraid to raise my hand in a large setting when they're looking for a volunteer? I'm afraid that I'm going to go up and say the wrong thing and people are going to think I'm weird, right? A lot of times we're scared of people's judgment. Very simple. Why are we scared of their judgment? We're scared of their judgment because then if they think I'm weird, then I'll be left out of some social setting, and then maybe I won't have a lot of friends. Well, what happens if I don't have a lot of friends? Well, then maybe I'll be lonely. Well, what happens if I'm lonely? Well, then I'll be sad. What happens if I'm sad? Then maybe I won't want to work hard. If I don't want to work hard, maybe I'll run out of money. If I run out of money, then I'll be homeless. If I'm homeless, then I might be sick. If I'm sick, and then I might die. If I'm die, I can't be alive. I can't feel anything. So that's a quick rundown of a practice to realize. So all we have to fear is death. Um, and let's just keep that as one kind of funnel, right? We can do another example. It's kind of just having the exercise of, and then if I don't take this job, then I, well, then what happens? Then I won't have money. Well, if I don't have money, then what happens? Then I can't pay for shelter. Right? If I don't have shelter, then what happens? I'll be out in the streets. If I'm in the streets, then what happens? I can get sick and die. A lot of these things slowly come down and drift down to the fact that you're afraid that you as a human may actually die, which sounds really deep for some simple things that we're scared of. People are scared to go run 2 miles in the cold, right? That's pretty reptilian, honestly, at the end of the day. That kind of brings out the instinct in your human mind saying, yo, it's really cold out. I don't want to go run. Why do you want to go run? Because then I could get sick. Then I could get sick, then I could die. It's not because it's hard. It's going to be hard to run. It's going to be cold outside, but your body naturally reacts to all these things as a survival instinct, as part of your, animal nature in itself, to say, no, I may die. Their survival instinct, right? And so many things in our life are triggered by our survival instinct as humans. There's really three layers to your brain at the end of the day. One is your reptilian instinct, which is super fight or flight. If someone's going to start whacking towards me with a, pan or something, I'll try and react like this, fight or flight. I'm either going to rise to the occasion and fight back, or I'm going to run away. And then your animal part of the brain, which wants to mate, um, gather food, eat, be hungry, create a shelter, survive, kind of fight off survival. That's more of that animal brain. I'm being super broad with this. And then we have that third level, which is our human brain, which actually can think, reason, have consciousness, create an imagination in our mind, speak to people, write down things, create concrete ideas, and have problem solving, thought flows. And when we have all these fear situations in our life, we bring out that reptilian part of our brain so much. We just go, no, I might be scared of dying. I'm going to go into fight or flight. So what I'm trying to get at, and hopefully you're following me at this point, honestly, I don't think I'm doing the best job of explaining it, is that once you realize this, okay, all I have to fear is the fear of death. So now how can we tackle the death situation, which is super complicated? There's been thousands of ways of people have been thinking about this, right? People form religions, people form, atheistic ideas, people try and study science and evolution. What happens to us when we die? Why should we be fearful of our ego and our human life leaving this earth, right? Why should we be scared of that? Why should we be scared of life ending? You're going to miss your friends and family. You're going to see all these things. You're going to be gone. And it's kind of it comes back to a point of, what are we attached to? I'm going a lot deeper than I thought. What are we actually really attached to um, in this life that we think is going to be permanent forever? Nothing's going to be permanent here. Your friends and family that you think will die and you will miss, they're honestly, it's unfortunate, but they're going to die too. they're going to be gone too one day. Your kids, everything you know, the things you own today, you're no longer going to own them. Nothing is permanent at all. And you can't change that. Like we've been trying to change that on this earth at least and see, we build houses to try and survive. We try and stay alive as long as possible and figure out what happens at death. Like we don't know what's going to happen. Nothing is permanent. We can't stay forever, and those are certain. So when you start to like really digest that and follow, I'm a very spiritual, religious person. Follow your religion. Figure out what happens after death. Shoot for that, right? But we're talking about Earth right now and just this human life. Once you realize that none of this is permanent, you can't stop it from changing. That's when, to my point I brought in the beginning of the video, is we have the fear of death and the fear of fear itself. So once I realize that I don't have to fear death, what I actually fear is the feeling of fear that I embrace towards death. And that's why Roosevelt, famous president, said, all we have to fear is fear itself. He knew it before we all did. Death is certain. All these things are going to happen. We can't change anything about that. So all we can be afraid of is that feeling of feeling afraid, which is terrible, which is what we act out of so much. And if you're still with me, if you're able to like address all this internally, it's really hard to. You're not going to be a non-fearful person. If you see a shark in the water, I'm going to freak out. I know you probably are too. But you can do your best to handle this in your daily life. When you're afraid to talk to that person you find attractive, you want to walk up to them. When you're afraid to go shake someone's hand you think is important. When you're afraid to go apply for that job. When you're afraid to say something in a team meeting. When you're afraid to go make a play in a sports practice. Like all these things, we need to step back and realize how much of it doesn't matter in the way that it's probably coming from a place where we think it's going to kill us, which is crazy to think of, right? Everything does matter. You should live this amazing life, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like nothing's going to actually probably kill you, except if you make these really wrong decisions. And when the death does come, if you avoid bad habits and you don't want to like put yourself in dangerous situations, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about normal situations. You have nothing to fear there too because it was inevitable regardless. We were going to end. We have a short life here, right? This is a very complicated subject that I probably could get into much more in depth in other videos or like a 30-minute long video. I want to keep these short and concise. And the main takeaway is one, play the end if game. Okay, so why am I actually afraid of this? And if this happens, what else happens? And if that happens, after that, what happens again? It'll all come back to the same way that we're scared of like not being here anymore, which you can't change. So all I should be afraid of is being afraid in itself, and I should just go do that thing I want to do. I shouldn't hold fear in my heart. I shouldn't, have that for me. I should embrace the next feeling of emotion that's next. Am I gonna execute? Am I gonna avoid this? Am I gonna think more creatively now? Am I gonna love that person instead? What is the next thing that you need to act on besides acting on fear when you play that and if scenario? Because that's the only way we're gonna be able to battle with our insecurities, things we're afraid of, things that we don't know are certain. Like this lesson in itself, ingrained over time, hopefully can be very transformational for you. And I'd love to do another conversation explaining this better. If you have somewhat of an idea, I really appreciate it. Drop a comment below about some quick thoughts. I'd love any feedback. And hope you keep killing it in your 2026 and have a great rest of your week. Thank you.